Good morning. This is Overheard Overnight, and I'm Christopher Mark. I wore a powder blue three-piece velvet suit to my high school graduation. So let me repeat that. A powder blue flared leg suit with matching vest, all made of velvet. It was stretched tightly over my then portly 18-year-old frame. Thankfully, there are no remaining pictures from that event, and I'm even more thankful that social media hadn't been invented yet. We're talking about fashion this morning, and the overarching fashion trend of the 1970s, that was individuality, and I certainly extol that. Early in the 70s, early in that decade, Vogue proclaimed, there are no rules in the fashion game anymore. And due to overproduction flooding the market with cheap synthetic goods, common items included miniskirts, bell-bottoms, popularized by hippies, vintage clothing from the 1950s and earlier, and the androgynous glam rock and disco styles that introduced platform shoes, bright colors, glitter, satin, and of course, velvet. Accessories in the early 70s riffed on the hippie outfits. There were chokers, headbands, scarves, and jewelry made of wood, stone, fine feathers, and beads. And for a certain teen in Mississauga, velvet. And the music that inspired much of this look? Ziggy played guitar, jamming good with Weird and Gilly, and the Spiders from Mars. Those are the opening lyrics from Ziggy Stardust, the second track on the fifth studio album from David Bowie. Massive title on that album, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Now, Mississauga is a suburb west of Toronto, and neither it or Toronto were fashion meccas in the 1970s. The clothing we wore could have been a little dated to be sure, but we wore it proudly. Our high school dances were big deals on the social calendar. Back in the day, they were held on Friday nights in the gym or the cafeteria, and they usually included a live band made up of our classmates. The band played hard and loud. In between those sets, a DJ spun tunes, and that was when the dancing really took place. Dressing up for those dances allowed us full teenage expression in 70s fashion. Back to the velvet. My typical look went something like this. Skin-tight jeans tucked into knee-high black platform boots. I wore a tight floral shirt underneath that, and I topped it off, wait for it, a navy blue velvet jacket. You might appreciate I never danced much at those high school dances. I still to this day wonder why. Pushing those fashion trends forward were the superstar celebrities of the 1970s. David Bowie, of course, in his Ziggy Stardust persona. Elton John, stadium glam rock to the extreme. Diana Ross and Donna Summers, disco queens. Cher at the height of her sequins. And Elvis Presley, of course, late in his career, prowling the stage in his blue onesies in Vegas. And where was it best to be seen and see people? Studio 54 in New York City was the epicenter of fashion and music, popular trends in the early 70s. Now, Toronto had its own version of hot nightclubs, and one of them was at the basement of the Hilton Hotel up on the airport strip in Toronto. I know, crazy spot. It was called Misty's. The DJ who ran the booth was Vicky Watson. She ran the console. There was a raised platform for dancing. It was covered in plexiglass. There were lights underneath it, lights above, of course, sirens and glitter balls, strobe lights, and of course, dry ice, all added to the decadence of the dance experience. Away from the dance floor, booths were tucked into tight corners, very dark, tight corners. And we learned very quickly that what were not Misty's stayed at Misty's. People lined up for hours. The place didn't get rocking until late. You knew the night was over when Donna Summers came on with Last Dance. Now, I should mention as well that I have some very fond memories of Misty's. I was the bouncer there for one summer before I moved on to university. And of course, the song that ended it all I just mentioned, Last Dance by Donna Summers. It's a last dance, a last chance for love. Yes, it's my last chance for romance tonight. Until next time.